different types of birds that we're going to get to see fly. Because each one of the different birds that we're going to see fly has a very different lifestyle. And that different lifestyle lends itself differently to each different bird. Each different bird is going to have a different way of surviving in order to be successful out there in the world. And so the first bird, it looks like it's on its way across the field right now. This is a bird native to the desert Southwest. So Texas, New Mexico, areas like that. So you'll definitely notice a lot of colors, good for blending in a desert environment. Dark reds, dark browns, things like that. This is a bird called a Harris hawk. And the Harris hawk is very similar to birds that we have here in South Carolina, like the red-tailed hawk and the red-shouldered hawk. Big birds, big, broad wings, good for moving to the next hunting ground, getting up in the air, flying fairly easily. It doesn't take all that much effort for this bird to do the flying that it needs to. Those big, broad wings help this bird to be able to do that. Very similar to the red-tailed hawks and the red-shouldered hawks. Long, broad wings, good for moving a lot of air and getting up in the air and soaring to the next hunting ground, or moving a lot of air when you're needing to fly. So similar to birds that we have here in South Carolina, but they live in a very different world. This is a desert bird. So first of all, already we're seeing some colors that are good for blending in that desert life. So browns and reddish browns. You see any colors that might not be the greatest for blending in the desert environment?
White.
White. A white stripe on his tail there, a white band on the tip of his tail, and a white rump patch. So white's not a great color for blending in the dark desert. This bird has that white stripe because of its different lifestyle that it encounters in the desert environments. There's not a whole lot of food out there in the desert for this bird to survive on. Yeah, there's mice and there's lizards and there's snakes and things like that this bird can catch. But Harris hawks have taken to the life of catching an animal that's very difficult to catch. These birds are really good at catching a large rabbit called a desert hare. So a desert hare is a rabbit that can get to 5 to 6 pounds, and that bird sitting on the perch out there weighs 1.5 pounds. So does it sound like a 1.5 pound bird can tackle a 6-pound rabbit all by itself and chase after it and catch it and have it for dinner? Not alone, exactly. And that's what makes this bird so different. Harris hawks are cooperative hunters, and that white stripe on the bird's tail actually helps it to communicate with the other birds in its team. So when this bird goes to chase after a rabbit, and the rabbit makes a hard right-hand turn, this bird flares out its tail and makes that hard right-hand turn, and that tail spreads out, and all the other birds can see that white patch. And all the other birds can say, oh, the rabbit must have ran that way, and they go and chase after it. These birds work like a pack of wolves in the sky. One of them will take up the chase and start chasing after the rabbit until that bird gets tired, and then that bird will stop, and another bird will take up the chase, start chasing that rabbit. A tired rabbit is a lot easier to catch than one that you just started chasing. So make that rabbit tired, then you chase it into the bushes, and rabbits like to hide in bushes. So get it hiding in some bushes, then you send one or two of these male Harris hawks into the bushes on one side of the bushes. They start flapping their wings against the bushes, and they run underneath of the bushes, and that rabbit goes running out the other side of the bushes, right to a group of big female Harris hawks sitting there waiting for that rabbit. These birds are cooperative hunters, and it's very important because a rabbit that size is not an easy meal to acquire in the desert environment. Any questions about the Harris hawk?
Male and female.
Same. So, are there any color differences between the male and the female? In some birds, like cardinals, a male bird is red and females are brown. It's really easy to tell whether they're a boy or a girl. Harris hawks, they all have that same color. Reddish brown on their wings, brown color, and the white stripes on their tail. So not by color, but you can actually tell by size. The females are larger than the males. So he's a male, like fairly small male. The female, we have a female that weighs right about 2 pounds. This bird weighs about 1.5 pounds.
Where'd you get him?
This bird was bought. So Harris hawks are really popular in the sport of falconry. Falconry is the sport of hunting with a trained bird of prey. It doesn't mean it has to be a falcon. This bird was bred to be utilized in the sport of falconry, and we purchased him to do this flying demonstrations and be an educational tool.
that a radio antenna?
On his tail there, you can see the antenna poking off there, and yes, it's a radio antenna. This bird is free to go wherever he wants to go, and if he gets scared and decides he's going to take an unauthorized field trip and go and hide in the trees from all you big scary people, we want to have a way to be able to go and locate him. So that's a radio tracking unit that we have a receiver, and we can go chase the little beep that it makes. What's his name? We don't name the birds because we don't want you guys to think that this is our pet bird. This is definitely not a pet bird. This bird was bred in captivity and has spent essentially its whole life being around people. Doesn't mean it's a pet bird. Still very much a wild bird. So we want you to remember that this is a bird called a Harris hawk. Not that its name's Bob. Because his name's not Bob. The ridges over the eye are actually a lot of the daytime hunting birds have that ridge over their eye. It's like a built-in baseball cap. This is a bird spending all day looking for things in a desert environment. Eagles and hawks have that big ridge over their eyes to protect their eyes from the sun. Falcons actually have a different adaptation to help them with the sun. They don't want those big ridges sticking out over top of their eye because that slows them down and creates extra wind resistance. They actually have black streaks underneath of their eyes, like football players put a black streak under their eye to cut down on glare.
How long did it take to train this behavior?
So all the behaviors that you've seen so far from this bird are all fairly natural. The most unnatural behavior is being around you guys, flying around people, and that's one of the hardest things to train these birds to do. These birds are fairly cooperative and easygoing in that kind of a thing. 2 or 3 weeks of being around people and being in this kind of a situation gets them used to it, and then a couple weeks to get them flying around. To really be doing everything that we want them to do, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and some birds are easier to train than other birds, but Harris hawks are fairly easy in a month's time or so.
What are you feeding? Have a bag.
He's getting beef bits. So this bird wouldn't go out and catch a cow and eat it for dinner, but beef bits are easy to cut up and they're easy to hold on to, and they don't look bad when you put them on the glove, and so we give this bird rewards of beef bits, but that's not all this bird needs to eat. This bird needs to eat a whole mouse or a whole quail or some sort of a whole animal. So he's getting little tidbits, we call them, as he's flying around, but he'll get his whole meal when he's done for the day.
If he does a good job.
Well, we'd like to think that, but we do have to feed them. So we just hope that they do a better job tomorrow if they don't do a great job. So we're good. Why does he have a bell on him? The bell has the same purpose as the radio tracking, only in a closer environment. So if this bird does take a field